Absolutely, really, really key. Very key if you're bringing someone to somewhere to assess them. So if you're bringing them to a mobility shop or something like that, they will have come outdoors. If they're outdoors, they might wear very different shoes to what they wear indoors. They might not wear shoes indoors. So ask them when they are coming to the assessment, bring your slippers, bring your shoes that you sit indoors with, or let's take off your shoes if that's not what you wear, so you get a more accurate measurement. So that's how you do your seat height. Your seat depth, again, we take this pen and we have an indicator there, so it's a nice visual. And I see from my pen to the base of my spine, and that is my seat depth, okay? When you are assessing someone for a high back armchair or a normal chair, often, if it's the same as how I've experienced it, you might say, okay, well, I'll take their measurement, it's 17 inches. I'll go for a height, if I'm measuring the chair for them, I might go for an 18 or 19 inch high chair, because that brings my hips slightly above the knees, and therefore it will make their transfer easier because they're not having to work as hard. That's what we often do with static armchairs. The other thing we often do is we say, okay, well, let's say I've measured 16 inches here, I'm going to add on a 2 fingers or an inch there, so that they're not tight against the edge of the chair, because that can be quite uncomfortable and also can build up risk of pressure areas if it's not the right fabric and cushioning, okay? But if we do it more than that and we're in that position, then there's a risk of pressure builds up in a smaller area. So we want to try and distribute that pressure as much as possible, just leave a little bit of space. However, when it comes to lift chairs with leg rest elevation, it's different. Anyone know what you would do then? Exact measurements, absolutely, and we'll demonstrate why that is. But before I do that, I'll just touch upon width. Okay, so if we're measuring width, I often like to take a book or a file, or if I can get my clients to put their hands there. That helps me to see exactly what I'm doing. If I take my tape measure and I go round like that, is that going to be an accurate measurement? No, because then I'll bring it up and I'll be like, it's quite a lot wider. Okay, so we want to go straight across. It's really important we do that. But what's more important is we want to go straight across the widest part of the body when they're sitting. So this is not the widest part. If I'm sitting in adduction, my legs are out because maybe I've got extra body mass, so it's just my positioning. If I measure here and I go for a chair that wide, where are these legs going to go? The rest of my legs are either going to be squished in and really uncomfortable, or I'm going to avoid that and I'm going to sit in that position so that I've got space, which is just going to not work. So we want to look at their position and measure the widest part and go for that hip width of the chair. Okay? So talking about measuring, I'm coming into the chair. This is not a bad size for me. So as I bring the leg rest up, if you have a look at what's happening is I'm getting full support throughout the leg rest. It's really nice support under my knees, and it will continue to give me the support that I need. And what do we want to look out for when it comes to leg rest elevation? Where do we want our heels to be? Just over the edge. So the truth is, this is probably half an inch to an inch too high for me, or too short in the seat, too long in the seat depth. If I put in an extra 2 inches behind me, I'd probably be in a better position. But if I had it too short and the seat depth was too short, my feet would be hanging off. I'd be at risk of foot drop, which means my feet positioning would be this, and it just really increases the risk of poor positioning of my feet, and therefore it's going to impact on my mobility and my transfers. If my seat height is too high and I've had to shuffle myself back into the chair, what's going to happen is my heels are going to be on the leg rest. If they're on the leg rest, then there's a real risk of pressure. Yeah. The heels are really sensitive, they're really bony, and if you are in bed all the time and in the chair the majority of the day, then you are at high risk of pressure damage on the heel. So where possible, what we want to do is actually offload the heels. So that is what we're kind of looking for there. So not significantly coming over, because that's risk of foot drop, but just bringing them over a little bit so that they are offloaded. But if, let's say, I have a person and I've had to raise the chair because actually the chair wasn't quite high enough for them, so I've raised my chair, what would happen is that would be too short for me now, and it would be kind of digging into my ankles rather than just above the heels, which we don't want. So with this chair, what we do have is the option of undoing it over here. I've shown you how to raise the chair. We've lifted the chair. And now what we're going to do is we're going to extend the leg rest elevation. So what, not sure what happened there, sorry. What's going to happen now is we're going to undo these screws over here, and then we would raise this piece and we would slot it if it was standard position, or we would do it with 1 inch height adjustment kits or 2 inch height adjustment kits. If you extend this by 2 inches, it will hit the floor unless you've raised the chair. You can get away with 1 inch, but you can't get away with 2 inches. It will hit the floor as it comes back down. So you would reposition this according to the person's knees, and then you would just pull this over and velcro it back together again. Okay? So that gives you your leg rest elevation. Does that make sense? Yeah? Gives people the support that they need under their legs. So actually you can see here, did you see it was on the middle hole? So this has actually been extended by 1 inch, so it's all the way down to the floor. So it can go 1 inch longer, and that makes sense as to why it was too long for me when I raised my legs. Okay, I was quite surprised as why it was, because I've done this training 2 weeks every day. And it was a bit like, what's going on here? But that's why. This has been extended by 1 inch, and if we had it shorter, it would have met my needs perfectly. Okay, so that's what we need to think about. And that is because sometimes people will need this height, but will need a little bit longer in the leg rest. It just depends on their leg length. Might be that they've got much longer legs than depth and things. So that's something to bear in mind. Okay. That's seat height. Seat depth. Seat depth is a really key one. I find sometimes that's the most important measurement. And often when you see someone sitting on a chair and their feet are slightly off the floor, it's not necessarily because the seat height is wrong, it's sometimes just because the seat depth is wrong. So with this chair, what we've got is the option to stand it here, and hopefully you will be able to see that there's a wooden bar here, metal frame here, and then you've got 2 brackets. Yeah? I have now got my chair set at 18 inches, at 20 inches, and what I would do is I would bring this inwards, so it's on this bracket now. I would bring it in, and it would then reduce my seat depth from 20 inches to 18 inches. So it's at the moment on this one, and we would just move it back and it would bring it out to 20 inches. Sorry, yes, it's on 18 inches and we bring it out to 20. So it's very easy to adjust the seat depth here. You just lift the clips on both sides, and then what we would do is lift it up and slot it back in again. Okay, so it's something you can do. So when you're assessing a client and you need it set up for that, you would write it on the form, please set it up on the 18-inch or 20-inch bracket. But what we can do in addition to that is if, let's say, that's not quite enough and the person actually needs a seat depth which is less than that, then what we would be looking at doing is putting in an extra piece called a depth adjustment kit, which we did have before. It might be over there, behind one of those chairs, sorry, in one of that. So what we can do is we take off these cushions. I don't know if we did have one actually, sorry. Take off these cushions, and we can bring that forward, because you'll have a piece that goes here. Looks exactly the same as this. It's got a 2-inch cushion, and that brings my seat depth even nearer, so it shortens my seat depth. Very quick and easy to do. Okay, so you've got both options there, and if you need to bring it to 14 inches, you could as well. So that's how we adjust the seat depth. In terms of seat width, we have a look at the chair. We've got the seat width as standard over here. Okay, so we've got this, and it can't be moved. This can't be changed. But what we do have is armrests that can be repositioned. So at the moment, what I've got is this overhang on the inside. So it's made the seat width a little bit narrower for me. It's an armrest a little bit nearer to me. But what I've done is I've undone the screw at the back, and I can push that back there, take this off, do the same on this side, and insert it into this one. At that point, what I'll have is my armrest, this one's that's there, is going to be having the overhang on the other side. So now I'm making the space between the armrests a little bit wider. So I've increased my seat width a little bit now. And then you push them forward and you tighten it up at the back. So it's not changing the seat width, but it is bringing the armrest a bit closer, which makes the transfer, for some people it would be a bit easier. You can see for me it was a bit more comfortable having it in a little bit narrower, just an inch and a half, but that inch and a half for some people can be the difference between getting their arms in a nice comfortable position and being able to push up for a transfer. So that's how we do the seat height, the seat depth, and the seat width. That makes sense? Excellent. Good to hear. So that's an image at the end here, just of the depth adjustment kit, and then you've got the overhang on the inside and then on the outside there. Okay? Cool. Just to give you an overview, the chair comes in a small, a medium, and a large. The main difference, if we jump over, the main difference is seat width. So you've got an 18-inch, a 20-inch, and 22-inch wide. Then within that, all of them have the same seat depth adjustments, and then you can choose the seat height. So there's a little key at the bottom over there. This one tells you which position you want the depth to be in. So do you want it on the first bracket or the second bracket? And that will tell you there. These indicate which height adjustment kit you may want. So as standard, seat height of the small is 16 inches. If I want to increase it by 1 inch, those two little circles there are telling me I need to include 1 inch height adjustment kit. And if I want it to be 18 inches, I've got one little circle there, and I have to add in my 2-inch height adjustment kit. So the first thing you're going to look at is the width. Although it's not the most important dimension, okay, it's going to guide you as to which chair you need. So it doesn't need to be precise for the client, and I would always estimate as well, if possible, just an inch extra either side is what we want to really allow for. It can be a little bit more than that. It can be a little bit less too. We just don't want it snug because they will have risk of shear and friction.